Hi everybody, my name is Ashley. Welcome to my channel if you're new, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 quick and easy dinner recipes with you. The first recipe in today's video is for a baked chicken chimichanga. And to get started with, I'm just taking a block of softened cream cheese and I'm just going to start mixing that with my hand mixer just to make sure that it's softened completely and just to loosen it up a little bit before adding in our next ingredients. I was so excited to make this recipe because I had a friend in college that would make it for me, and it is so good and so easy to make. So the next thing I'm going to add in is a pack of taco seasoning. You can make your own or you can use a packet of whatever your favorite is, and then I'm just going to mix that well to combine. Now I will have a recipe linked in the description box below for all of these recipes today, but for this one I did add in some diced green chilies, which the recipe does not call for, but I love the flavor of them, so I went ahead and added it in. You could also do some like drained rotel if you would like some tomatoes in there as well. And then I'm also going to mix in some shredded pepper jack cheese, and I just like to grate that freshly myself if I'm able to. And then we're going to add in our shredded chicken. Now for the chicken, you can use anything that you have on hand. I'm just using a rotisserie chicken, and here you're going to see my husband's hand because he does not understand the concept of me filming, but I just thought it was pretty funny that he wasn't paying attention to what I was doing here. But you just want to take a spoon at this point and fold it in. I wanted to keep the pieces of chicken a little bit bigger, and if you use your mixer, it is going to break them up a little bit more, but that's just personal preference. But since I had already pulled it into smaller pieces, I wanted to use a spoon. Now we're going to take some tortillas. Now these are the burrito sized tortillas. You can use regular tortillas if you like. It's completely up to you. And then I'm just going to fold them here. So I'm going to take each side in, fold over the bottom, and kind of pull back on the tortilla, folding the edges in to make sure it's sealed. And then I'm going to roll it the rest of the way. It is important to make sure that you seal the ends, because when you're baking this in the oven, if you don't, it will start to come out. Not the biggest deal, but it's just best if you can try to get those edges sealed just to make sure that it stays inside when you're baking them. Now, like I mentioned before, I am using the burrito sized tortillas, so out of this mixture I was able to make 4. If you're doing the normal taco size shells or tortillas, then you'll be able to get more out of them. And then I'm also using the carb smart ones just because I am trying to eat a little bit lower carbs. So that's also an option if you're doing the same, just to keep that in mind. And then I just transfer that to my baking sheet that I lined with some parchment paper. And then I'm going to brush on a little bit of melted butter. And then this is going to go into the oven, and we're going to let it bake, flipping it halfway through, and again brushing the other side with some butter before finishing. Now for the oven temperature, I started mine out like the recipe says at 350 for 15 minutes, and then I went ahead and flipped them over and cooked them at 400 for the additional 10 minutes just so it can brown up a little bit more. Next recipe in today's video is for these teriyaki meatballs, and these were absolutely amazing. My husband loved them. You're just going to start out by prepping the meatballs. So for this, I'm going to take 1 egg into my bowl, and I like to put that in first and give it a good whisk around with my fork to start breaking it up before adding in the rest of my ingredients and the ground pork. So next I'm going to add in some soy sauce. Now the recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon, and then you can see that I decided to add a little bit more. And then for the other ingredients, you're going to add in some garlic, some fresh ginger, and some green onions. And then this is the ground pork going in, and some breadcrumbs. Then you want to mix all of that together to combine, but you don't want to over mix it, so just mix it until it just comes together, and then we'll be ready to separate it out into the individual meatballs. Now if you don't like ground pork, you could do ground chicken or ground turkey. I think those would be good substitutes. Ground beef has a much stronger flavor, and for this teriyaki style, I wouldn't recommend using it. But if you want to give it a try and you like how it turns out, let me know in the comments down below. Alright, so I just took another baking sheet lined with some parchment paper, and I rolled the balls into about ping pong size balls here. And then I'm going to place this into my preheated oven. It's going to be at 400 degrees, and you're going to cook them for about 20 minutes or until they reach an internal temperature of about 160. And while those are baking, I went ahead and made the teriyaki sauce. And all you need for this is some water, soy sauce, some brown sugar, and then more garlic and ginger. And then you're just going to go ahead and stir all of that well together. I'm just using a whisk to try to help the brown sugar dissolve into the liquids. And then you're going to let this come to a boil and reduce it down. Now the recipe does call for a couple tablespoons of cornstarch, which I thought I had, but I did not. So if you do have it, you can use that, and it's going to make the sauce thicker. My sauce ended up being a thinner teriyaki sauce because I did not have the cornstarch, but the flavor was still absolutely amazing, so just keep that in mind. This dinner, like the other two in this video, came together in no time at all. While I was making the sauce, the meatballs were baking in the oven, so it was really quick. It all came together in about 20-25 minutes. And here are the meatballs out of the oven. So at this point, you just want to add them into your teriyaki sauce and let it coat the meatballs. And then I served it just with some white rice and some broccoli, and we were ready for dinner. The last recipe in today's video is for this creamy Cajun shrimp linguine, and I'm also going to show you a low-carb twist at the end with this recipe. But you're just going to start out by melting some butter and a little bit of olive oil in a pan, and then to that I'm going to add the shrimp. So the shrimp you want to have peeled and deveined, and then I went ahead, I used frozen shrimp, so I just thawed it and then I patted it dry on paper towels to make sure that it was completely dry, and then added it into my pan. And then I'm also going to add in a few cloves of chopped garlic to that as well. Now you can see here my pan is a little bit small for the amount of shrimp, but it comes out perfectly, so if you have that same issue, no worries. And you're just going to let that cook with the Cajun seasoning as well for a couple of minutes on each side. Now this is where I kind of deviate from the original recipe. They have you just go ahead and add all the rest of your ingredients in with your shrimp, but I did not want my shrimp to overcook. That's like one of my least favorite things, is when you overcook seafood. So once the shrimp was cooked, I removed it from the pan, trying to leave behind like the garlic and the butter in the bottom of it. And then I'm going to go on with the next steps of adding in the heavy cream. That's another thing that I kind of changed. The recipe called for half and half, but I didn't have that on hand, and I did have heavy cream, so I used that. And I let it cook down for a couple of minutes and then added in the shredded Parmesan cheese and some additional Cajun seasoning. And then the shrimp is going to go back into the sauce, and we're ready to plate. One more quick additional note, with the Cajun seasoning, you want to use it to taste, so depending on your preference for heat, and then also different seasonings have different levels of salt, so just keep that in mind and taste it and add as you would like. Here it is over the linguine, and then I served mine on the side with some steamed broccoli, and it was absolutely amazing. That sauce on the broccoli is so good. So if you're eating low carb or a keto diet, you have to try this recipe. It is absolutely perfect. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't done so already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.